Hello, everyone. People are loading in. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our webinar on demystifying support staff in the screenwriting industry. My name is Heather Daughtry, and I work with marketing and sponsorships here at Final Drafts. And we are so excited. You guys are loading in. I don't know why in my head I was expecting to see people. I miss people. Hi, everyone. Where's everyone from? Drop in the chat where you're from. Shout out your city, your state, your neighborhood. Brooklyn, Bronx, New Jersey, LA, Flint, Michigan, Canada. Oh, it's going to India. Wow, this is amazing. Hawaii, Texas, Vancouver, Las Vegas, NoHo, North Hollywood. Oh, it's moving so fast. I'm like, Orange, LA again, California, Chicago, Chi-Town, what's good? This is wonderful. Thank you all for joining us today. We are so excited. We have a great group of panelists. Okay, a Heather from LA. Hi, I'm Heather from LA. This is awesome. Arizona, upstate New York, California. Great. We're gonna let you all continue to roll in. Portland, Oregon, love it. Indiana, Baltimore. Okay, I can't help like do an accent when I say some of these names because I have friends from all of these places. This is wonderful. Seattle, West Virginia, Michigan, Chile. Wow, this is so awesome. Thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. We love providing these types of resources and panels for you all. And we're so grateful for your attendance. And if you have to leave early, or if you would like to revisit this panel again, we are recording, so it will be uploaded on our Final Draft YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube. We have a wonderful podcast, the Write On Screenwriting Podcast, our blog, our social media. We have lots of great resources. And we are partnered today with the WGA Virtual Mix, and I will be introducing the founder of that wonderful community very shortly. I'm just gonna see people are still rolling in, so I'll give it a couple more minutes before I introduce Yelena, and we will get started. Happy weekend, yes, from the greater New York area. Hello. St. Louis, Mexico, Compton. I love it. This is awesome. Boston, Bay Area, Denver, Colorado, Florida. This is great. You all are in for a treat today. Showrunner from Los Angeles, West Virginia, Baltimore, Brooklyn. Hello, hello, hello. Riverside, the IE, Dominican Republic. I miss the DR. I went there. It was such a great time. Such a great time. Punta Cana. Okay, so again, we'll get started now. Our mixer will be an hour tonight. And as you all know, we will be talking about demystifying support staff in the screenwriting industry. I am going to now introduce our host, Yelena War. And she is a writer, podcast host, LSAT instructor. She gained worldwide attention when she wrote the 2020 episode of The West Wing on Twitter, and it went viral. And since then, she's written 35 short scripts for Disney Digital, set within the Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen 2 universes, which is pretty cool. She's worked on top-rated true crime podcasts. Serial Killers is one of them. She's even placed third in the UCLA Writers Program TV writing competition and reached the semifinal rounds for the 2020 Walt Disney Television Writing Program and the 2020 Page Awards. And I really love this about Yelena. Her goal as a writer is for women to feel seen, not just watched. So here she is with her lovely hair. She looks so pretty. And the founder of the WGA Virtual Mix, Yelena War. So enjoy. I'm going to disappear now and take it over.
Well, thank you for that wonderful intro, Heather. And
You're
thank
very
you,
welcome.
Final Draft, for giving us your platform for today. So if you are not familiar with WGA Virtual Mix, it is a free and unbranded community on Discord. I am going to go ahead and just drop in the chat a little link to join the Discord community. If any of you who are here on Zoom hearing about us for the first time would like to chat with us on Discord, it's just a bunch of writers supporting writers, having solidarity, cheering for the union, not part of the union, just big union supporters. So we are joined here today by an amazing panel of current support staff, former support staff, people who hire support staff, at least one person who hires support staff. And we are going to talk about support staff roles because, you know, I'm a career changer myself. I came in from the tech industry, and one of the most confusing things to me when I started aspiring to be a TV writer is, what are these writer's assistant, writer's PA, script coordinator jobs? What do they even do? How do you get them? Are they really a great way into the industry? Why are so many people feeling stuck in them? And it can be hard to get good information about these jobs. A lot of the information that's online or in books is outdated because the TV world has changed so much in just the past few years. So I wanted to bring a few great folks that I know in that Final Draft we're already in touch with together and address some of those questions. So I am going to go just in the order that people are on my personal screen and introduce some of the cool folks that we have with us today. We have Lynn Sternberger, who was in fact the person who kind of first talked to me about support staff jobs way back when I was just very, very beginning to dip my toe into the writing world. And Lynn started out temping, started out as an assistant on a manager's desk, and then through a wonderful career so far, has credits including Heartbeat, was nominated for the 2018 GLAAD Media Awards, worked on The Bold Type, won a 2019 Shorty Award, worked on Guilty Party, Bluff City Law, and just wrote her first Hallmark feature, Love Classified, and is developing her pilot, Crushing It, through the highly competitive Rideback TV Incubator program. So Lynn, thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here, guys.
And I am going to go through the rest of these intros. And for the folks who are current support staff, now Lynn is extra special because she has broken out of that world and is being a top writer now. But for the folks who are current support staff, because the spotlight is on you, I'm going to ask you when I introduce you to tell us a little bit about your current support staff job, what your title is, and what kind of the main things that you do with your day right now in this weird pandemic era world are. So I am going to go to Emmy Higgins next, and Emmy is a support staffer extraordinaire, super due for a staff writing job if anybody on the line is hiring. She has worked on Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, For the People, Good Girls, Law and Order, Organized Crime, and Off the Clock. She writes stories about badass women, complicated families, and mental illness with a touch of the supernatural. So Emmy, say hello to everybody and tell us about your current job.
Hello, everyone. Currently, I am wrapping up season 1 of Law and Order Organized Crime. I am the writer's assistant, which means I'm taking notes in the room, currently Zoom room. So that also means that I'm running the virtual boards. We use Miro, so it's kind of a two-hander deal right now. But my job is to take notes on all the pitches that the writers give throughout the day, and then compile them and send them out at the end of the day to everyone, and just kind of stay on top of all the boards, the episode boards, the character boards, all that fun stuff.
All right, professional, be on top of everything, or Emmy Higgins. And then next on my screen is beloved co-showrunner and co-creator of the One Day at a Time Netflix then Pop TV reboot, Mike Royce. He is known for so many great shows. He was on Everybody Loves Raymond. He co-created Enlisted. Men of a Certain Age, I believe, is still now available to stream on HBO Max. Is that right, Mike?
Correct, yes.
Yes. first chance to catch that one on streaming. So jump on that. And then of course has the poster right behind him for the beloved Cuban American One Day at a Time reboot that he did with Gloria Calderon Kellett. So, and Men of a Certain Age right there too. Beautiful. So Mike is here to share the perspective of a showrunner who is hiring support staff and also someone who within the industry is really a believer that the people with power need to be supporting our support staff. So thank you so much for being here, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
And then next on my screen is Adam A. We've got two Adams today. There's just, I don't know which of them is taking the first man title. Adam Azule logged into the Zoom earliest, so he will be our first man Adam today. But Adam, I know initially from my last writing group, he is representing Puerto Rico today. He got his first job still while he was on the island. He moved to Los Angeles after his first script coordinator position and has continued to work as a script coordinator. His goal as a writer is to create moving and influential stories to combat inequality. So Adam, say hello and tell us about your current job. What does a script coordinator do?
Hello, I'd like to think of script coordinator as the final line of defense for the written word on a show. Before it goes out to everyone, we kind of make sure everything is kosher, everything is continuity wise, everything clearance wise. We just kind of polish it up, I guess, and make sure everything is good to go for production. So I would say that is what a script coordinator does mostly. I mean, there's a lot of other menial tasks like paperwork, but that's the most important one.
Last, best, and final line of defense. We need to make t-shirts for the script coordinators that say that. We will get right on that. All right, and then next on my screen is Joseph Mwamba. Joseph is generally known as Joe Might Like TV all over the internet, including on Discord, where he is my co-moderator of the WGA Virtual Mix community. But he is here today representing people who are at desks at agencies and management companies. So prior to the pandemic, when he, along with a whole bunch of people, hit the dreaded furlough, Joe was working on 2 lit agents desks at UTA. So Joe, why don't you say hello and tell us a little bit about working on an agency or management company desk? What is that job? You're muted.
Such a rookie move. Hi everyone. Pleasure to be here on this panel as well. And pretty much my main job as an agent's assistant is just make sure they get to the meetings on time, make sure that their calls are, make sure to get them when they have their actual calls, just pretty much making sure that their lives go as smoothly as possible, because they're in charge of a lot of people's careers. And so you want to make sure that that they take everyone seriously, and that way to do that is to make sure that they're getting to places on time. So that's, of course, again, just like there's a lot of other stuff, but your primary job, anticipate and make sure that they get to things on time.
Yes, I'm hearing a big theme of being on top of things in all of these jobs. So yes, you are all the people actually keeping Hollywood running while all of the weird creatives run around with their hair on fire. So thank you all for that. Next on my screen is Raul, who is from north of Madrid in Spain. Amazing. And I just found out before we began this panel that he is also 6'8". I've been going through the whole pandemic with this kind of knot in my stomach, knowing that one of these days I am going to meet somebody on Zoom, and then I'm going to meet them in real life, and they're going to be 6'8", and I won't have known. So that turns out to be Raul, but thankfully I figured it out before he towered over me unexpected IRL. Writing wise, Raul has worked as a writer's PA, a showrunner's assistant, and a script coordinator on Vida. So moved up that ladder on Vida for Stars, was script coordinator on Colin in Black and White on Netflix. He is a writer's assistant network and Outfest Screenwriting Lab fellow, and he's currently working with Ben and Daniel Barnes on Generation for HBO Max. So, Ro, why don't you tell us a little bit about not only your current job, but what is that? We don't have anybody else, I think, who has done that writer's PA job here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that as well? And then I know we
Yeah.
have another showrunner's assistant, so I'll leave that one to her.
Okay, so yeah, I have been here for 10 years in Los Angeles, and I started in education first, but then I transitioned to TV, which is what I really wanted to do forever. And I started as a writer's PA, which is great. We can talk later about how I got it if you want to, because I'm sure people is gonna ask how you can step in. But what you do is basically making sure that the lives of the writers are as easy as possible. So you bring, you take orders for lunch, you bring lunch, you keep everything tidy and nice. And then if you're lucky, which I have been, they usually let you participate and sit in the room and hear, and that's when the magic happens, and that's why we're here. So when those little moments happen is when, the day is super worthy. But that's basically what a writer's PA would be. Then I have done script coordinating, and I am currently a showrunner's assistant, and I have to say that I love going from one to the other, because I feel like, especially during pandemic, a script coordinator is basically you in front of scripts most of the times. As a showrunner's assistant, you're super involved in production, and everybody needs something from your boss, so they filter through you, which is great because it also teaches you a lot about how to deal with people. And I see it as a training for when I'm a writer, because I know about television. I know we all learn about writing however we do it, but doing what I do, it's really like a master's on TV and how TV works and how you can produce a TV show, which is great.
That is fantastic. So you've gotten to go back and forth in different rooms. Incredible. Thank you for being here. And then next on my screen is Stephanie Osuna Hernandez, and she is also a fabulous showrunner's assistant. She is a writer-director from Inglewood, California, started in digital as a video producer for We Are Me Too, worked at Netflix's Con Todo, creating content for their original titles, was the assistant to Marvin Lemus and Linda Y. Chavez for season 1 of Gentefied, and is now their showrunner's assistant for season 2. Also recently directed her short film Dreamer, and is writing her first romantic comedy feature, planning on directing it in the near future. So thank you for being here, Stephanie. And what is it like to be a showrunner's assistant?
I actually just got done being their showrunner's assistant. I didn't go with them through post, but I was just literally recently, I'm still unwinding from production in COVID. So it was really interesting to be there season 1 in person, and just everything seems normal. And then season 2, writer's room was, Zoom, and then production was like getting tested 3 times a week and face shields and all that. But for a showrunner's assistant, I've learned that you're the middleman, like Raul was saying. You're the person that they have to go through. So I learned so much, scheduling things, scheduling phone calls, being in phone calls, taking notes during those phone calls, cleaning up those notes, just a lot of logistical things, and making sure that their life is in order logistically, so that they can be as creative and like focus on the show as much as possible. And I was the showrunner assistant for both Marvin and Linda during season 2. So yeah, thank you for having me. And I think I forgot to mention in my bio, I'm also, I know they'll kill me if I don't mention it, Film Independent Project Involved directing fellow for this year. So yeah.
Congratulations, that is fantastic. And last but not least on our panel is Adam Mallinger. For over a decade, he has been known online as the Bitter Script Reader, is no longer a Bitter Script Reader. He is now a writer's assistant, but his first job in television was as a writer's PA. So I was wrong that we only had one writer's PA, we have 2. NCIS New Orleans in 2015. Since then, he's been writer's assistant on Blood and Treasure and Superman and Lois. And this season, he actually got his first script for Superman and Lois, which will air this summer. So congratulations, Adam. 10 years after debuting as the Bitter Script Reader, you are now an unbitter script writer.
It only took a decade. So yeah,
Rocket ship fast, overnight success in Hollywood. You're doing great. So what is it like to be a writer's assistant on Superman and Lois?
It's a lot of being on Zoom and listening while the writers talk, writing down everything that's said. On our show, all of the assistants are allowed to participate, so I get to throw in pitches. So there's a lot of that. I'm also the show's Arrowverse expert, so I'm the guy who, when they come up with an idea, has to raise my hand and say, they did that one already on Supergirl, guys. We can't touch that one. And I'm also a Superman fan, and so that certainly has come in handy. Todd Helbing, our showrunner, has introduced me in production meetings as like the guy who knows more about Superman than you'll ever believe. So I take that as a high compliment. But I guess I'm the continuity guy and that kind of stuff. But the main job is sitting and taking notes and contributing to discussion and just bringing good energy to the room, I think, too.
Note taking, pitching, and buzz killing. Those are your 3 jobs. Fantastic. And also want to thank Emma Vranich from Final Draft for being here. She is monitoring the chat for anything that is really more of a final draft question. But feel free, we're going to talk a little bit through some kind of prepared questions that I know you're going to want to talk through, but feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box at any time. I will be going through those, of course, giving a priority in the limited time we have to questions that are specific to support staff roles, because these are people who are in these very difficult, long hours jobs. It is rare to be able to get so many of them to give up an hour of their Friday. Frequently, the hour of their Friday is taken up by their showrunners and by their rooms. So we want to make as much use of their time this Friday as we possibly can for the support staff topic. So I would love to kind of start and throwing this out to any of our current and former support staff who are on the panel. What is, do you think, a misconception about support staff work or about your particular support staff role that you'd like to take this chance to dispel?
I'll start. One of the things I would say is one of the most common misconceptions is that they are entry-level jobs. Most of the time, landing a writer's PA job, which is typically the first support staff role on a writer's department, that takes years for some people to maneuver over to. And because it's such an insular community, and we'll get more into that later, I'm sure, about how it's all about networking, but yeah, those jobs just don't fly by readily and often to a wide network of people. So sometimes you have to work your way over and traverse from other industry jobs.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what it would be interesting also to hear from folks, what really was your first industry or industry adjacent jobs? Because for most people, like Emmy points out, you're not waltzing in and immediately having writer's PA offered to you. So I know, Lynn, you started out with a temp agency, right?
That's right. I went to school for a year in Vancouver. My connection is unstable, so I apologize if this is breaking up. But I went to film school for a year, and then I moved to Los Angeles, and I didn't know anybody, so I didn't know how to get my foot in the door. So a temp agency was my access point, and I don't really recommend them if you have another option to just get the gig without. But I did not, that I knew of. So I went onto a desk for, it was supposed to be, I think, 8 days. And I was like, this will be great. I'll learn what the job is as an agency assistant. And they kept me on for about 8 months because I could stay on top of my email inbox, learn how to roll calls, correspond with their clients in a really professional manner. And so I stuck around. And then I moved to that same job outside of a temping situation. And I was an agency assistant when I staffed, which I think is unconventional, but it's how it happened for me.
Very rare, but so are all breaking in stories. If there's one thing I've learned by running a community where we interview people every Friday about how they broke in, it's that they are all one of a kind, unrepeatable lightning strike stories. So yes, rare yet common in a way. What about our script coordinators on the panel? What are some misconceptions about the script coordinator job? I know one of them has already popped up in the Q&A, which is what's the difference between a script coordinator and a script supervisor? And I suffered from that misconception for like 2 years after I decided to be a TV writer. It took me a couple years to figure out script coordinators are not script supervisors.
I was trying to type in that answer and pay attention at the same time, and it's taken me forever. So I'm glad, I'll just say it out loud, I guess. Script supervisor is an on-set job, and usually they're at Video Village in front of the monitors, and they're keeping track of continuity as it's unfolding on camera. So like they'll see what hand you're holding the water bottle, and they'll mark it on their little version of the script. And they have all sorts of things that they got to take care of. Whereas a script coordinator is in the writer's room. And sometimes it's after the writer's room closes, you follow the script and monitor the revisions and maintain that on the script, but it's really a kind of an office job. It's not an on-set job. That's what I would say is the main difference. Also, script supervisor, that's like the third name for that position. Before it was called continuity. And before that, it was very not politically correct. It was called script girl, but like it's gone through some phases, that job on set. Glad it's moved forward to script supervisor. But yeah, that's where continuity, I would say, is the biggest priority for a script supervisor. And then in terms of misconceptions about script coordinating, I've had people who, when I try to fill positions for other script coordinator jobs for producer friends of mine, when I'm working, they'll ask me, who do you recommend? I get a lot of emails that say, I've never been a script coordinator, but I'm really good at finding typos. And that's not really everything that a script coordinator does. It's a big misconception is you're just there to find the typos and correct the grammar. Or in my case, put in the Spanish or something, you know, like there's all sorts of different things that we're in charge of. And it's not just making sure there's no typos. That's, I guess, the biggest misconception.
In my case, for example, when I was a script coordinator, I would always, and this is a problem that I create myself, I had this self-imposed barrier that English is not my first language. So I'm always assuming that I'm going to do a terrible job at finding typos. And then I found out that that is the least amount of actual work that you have to do as a script coordinator. And actual writers that have been writing forever commit the same mistakes that I commit when I write. So I was very happy to see that. And then I found myself dealing with clearance a lot more, or actual formatting of, because basically what you do is make sure the script looks the way the showrunner and the writer intended to be. Sometimes even the network, they have their own rules, and that's what you do as a script coordinator. And you spend more time doing that than actually finding typos, which is huge too. But yeah, I would say that for script coordinator.
Yeah, you know, and while we're talking to Raul and Adam, I know we have at least you two on the panel who are Spanish speakers, and Raul is English as your second or more language. I don't know if you know other languages besides English and Spanish as well. So we had a question from Josefina Valenzuela about getting a support staff job as someone with English not as their first language. Is clearly that was not impossible for you, Raul, but is it an asset or a mark against you if you are fluent in another language as your first language? For Josefina, it's also Spanish.
I think it's always good whenever you have other things that you can add to your life experience. If you are able to speak different languages, that is always going to be amazing, no matter what job you do. I happen to also speak English because I major in English. So yeah, I would say it's always good. And then to find a job, I think you can. I mean, it's the whole question of doesn't matter where you live to get a support staff. If you want to work in America, in the Hollywood industry, in television, if you live in LA, it's gonna be, you're gonna have more possibilities probably to find jobs. But everything is changing, and with streamers, and now after a pandemic, we realize that a lot of jobs can be remote. Maybe that, you know, allows you to find a wonderful job as a support staff on a Hollywood show from Venezuela, which would be beautiful.
Absolutely. So her name is actually Valenzuela. I don't know if she's in Venezuela, but
I'm sorry.
her name is Valenzuela. But
I
if
thought
she is
in
in
Venezuela.
Venezuela, then that is very that is very appropriate to her surname. And Stephanie, your show is bilingual, right? I love Gentefied, and I love that they really don't hide or subtitle or translate all the Spanish. You just you engage with it.
Yeah, I think for them, it was very important this season around to hire a script coordinator that did know Spanish, to kind of be able to translate, to kind of give the responsibility to someone who will be able to kind of translate that. And our script coordinator was Fran. I don't know if he's here, but Fran Carrera, and he's like amazing. And he's Venezuelan. And sometimes we would be like, hey, that's Venezuelan slang and this is Mexican. And it would just be like, you know, even within us, like there's so many ways to say some type of slang or anything. So I thought that was always very interesting and fun to kind of see that we have so many ways to say something. But yeah, for them, it was very important to have Spanish speaking. And even for me, like as their showrunner assistant, since their show is based in LA, I did a lot of research too for like location or wardrobe or makeup or anything. And like they wanted someone who really understood the world. And I think that was another plus of me coming in along to be their assistant, because I was able to kind of find that research and know exactly what they're talking about when they're like, hey, we want Pop's house to look like this, or Pop's room to look like an old abuelito's room. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly what that is. Here are the photos. And then be able to give it to the production design. So yeah, so it was very, I think for them, it was very important to kind of hire someone who knew the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is a great show. If anybody has not streamed Gentefied, we definitely want more Latinx content on all of these streaming services. I know we lost Mike's One Day at a Time, which still makes me very upset, although the pandemic kind of forced it to end at a very beautiful last line that ended up being kind of a wonderful goodbye to the series. So yes, if you have not seen the final season on Pop TV, definitely check that out as well for some other wonderful Latinx content that is gone too soon after only 3 3/4, 3 8/10 seasons. I don't know quite how many you were.
3.5, you could say 3.5, you know, but what's a season now?
Seasons.
Everything's a season.
So, right. Yes. I love like when podcasts have seasons, but they take 2 weeks off between seasons. They'll be like, and we're back with season 8, and season 7 ended literally 2 weeks ago. Like, I don't think you have seasons. I think you just have a podcast. So yes. No. So while I have you, Mike, from your perspective as somebody who's hired a lot of support staff, what are you looking for? And if you want to speak to the bilingual question, feel free. But overall, what makes somebody stand out to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, for One Day at a Time, I don't think we had writers' assistants who were bilingual, but we had plenty of writers who were bilingual. And we had there was a similar, wait a minute, I think that's a different slang from, you know, there's a lot of comparisons of slang, which was very educational for me. And I think it's a conundrum in terms of what you're looking for in script coordinators and writer's assistants, because this is, you know, part of what we're trying to do with the program that Tanya and Liz and I started at the Writers Guild Foundation, is break through the main problem, which was already brought up about networking. You know, when your show is greenlit, did we lose Yelena? Is she frozen, or is that just me? I'll just keep talking. But when your show gets greenlit, it's like your house is on fire, and you're like, I gotta hire people. Shit, we gotta go. Let's go. And writer assistant script coordinator is like, you're like, I just need somebody good right away. And so your nature is just, okay, I'll reach out to this person who I know just had a show. Maybe they know somebody good, and maybe they know somebody good. And it becomes a bit of a rush job. Of course, you want to find someone who makes you secure that you're not going to worry about them doing the job right. That's your main focus. But that process, which is, you know, super flawed, leads to just it doesn't encourage developing people, you know, and looking outward and getting new people in the mix. So you really have to concentrate. I prefer a situation where you can have a very experienced script coordinator, and then you can try someone new as a writer's assistant if the script coordinator is willing and able to help the writer's assistant, you know, along. It really depends on the circumstances. But that's sort of the best of both worlds, where you're getting somebody new in there and having someone really experienced to cover all the bases. And yeah, ideally, I mean, you know, we on shows that I've done, I like everybody to pitch, you know, the writer's PA as well as the assistant and coordinator. And so, you know, some of our best jokes on One Day at a Time came from people who were the assistants and coordinators. So that hopefully helps them. And then, you know, of course, the holy grail is trying to get a script. And that's where the process has also become very hard because of the short orders. You know, we had 12 or 13 people in the room, there were a couple of teams. So, you know, 9 or 10 writing entities at One Day at a Time, and you only have 13 episodes. And Gloria and I would write usually 2. So now you're down to 11, and everybody has to get an episode, and suddenly you're just out of episodes basically to hand out. When I was a boy, coming up in the, when I got on Everybody Loves Raymond, which was my first show, there's 24 episodes, and the writer's assistants always got an episode, because that's just, there were enough to go around. So I don't know if that answered anybody's question. I just sort of like babbled about stuff.
No, I think that was great.
Can I
And yes,
piggyback
please.
on something Mike is saying? So,
Of course.
so Mike is a showrunner, and he actually gets to hire people. Not quite there yet. I'm a mid-level writer. But something that I found that I can do from where I'm sitting is be ready with support staff resumes of people that I've worked with on previous jobs, so that when those coveted positions, like Mike said, it's a flash, right? Like they're like, go, 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 and you have to staff them immediately or fill the gig. I have good access as a mid-level writer to hearing about those. That's one of the hardest things, is learning about the job before it's filled. But if I already have the up-to-date resume of somebody that I've worked with and can attest is amazing, I am very good at sending those immediately and singing their praises and hopefully getting them their next job, which might be the job where they get the script, or where they get paired up with a senior writer to get half a script, or, you know, it's incremental. But that is one thing that is less of an ask than asking a writer on a staff that you come into contact with to read your script and give you notes and recommend you to their reps. I can read your resume in 10 seconds, and I can put it in a folder on my desktop in less than that. And I love singing people's praises. It's the best thing ever. So much of the industry is a downer and no's. So being like, yes, I'm putting you forward for this is exciting, even if it doesn't coalesce in a job. So that's what I would say, like, once you're in the position, there are different levels of ask, and to be aware of like what your relationship is with people at different hiring abilities. Me, no hiring ability. Mike, huge hiring ability. Really impressed that guy. But you know, reading the room is a skill that will serve you well, not just moving up through the ranks, but in the job that you're currently in.
What is I think Raul has something to say, but before we go away from Lynn, just quickly, what is the best way for someone to come to you as a mid-level writer in the room and talk to you about maybe the next kind of thing that they would want to do? Like if they're a writer's PA and their goal is like, I know Lynn is really supportive of the writing staff, and I would love for her to think of me if after this season she hears of a writer's assistant job that I could maybe move up to. How should they approach you?
Your relationship starts on day one with literally every single one of your coworkers. That doesn't mean that everything has to happen day one. You know, there's there's something to be said about sort of like finding where your natural affinities are, like who you share commonalities with. It could be what your taste is in, you know, when a pitch flatlines, you know, or when a pitch like really sings to you, you can kind of, you can get a sense of, you know, what that writer's preferences are. See who you relate to in that sense, but also just outside of the job. Like, do you live in the same part of town? Do you have same interests in sports teams or dogs or whatever? Form a human connection first. The professional connection should follow that almost always. Because not only will you ask them something more appropriate because you know who they are, you ask them for something they can maybe deliver to you, they'll feel really enthusiastic about the fact that you've already got this connection, that you've already connected about something. And then I would say the second thing any support staff person could do is show an interest in that. Like, I'll give an example, not just to show an interest, but to do a little bit of, I don't want to call it free work, but asserting your interest in that senior writer and also showing them that you're good at something. So for example, I don't think I should name the show. I was once asked to write articles that were basically lorem ipsum. You guys know the filler stuff that they throw up. So we were going to see it on screen, ideally. And the person who was creating this episode was like, I don't want it to be fake. I want it to be real, as if like somebody freeze framed a screen capped it, and you know, you could read the article. And I was like, that I am happy to do for you. So I went deep and I became a magazine writer for a night, and then I sent them the article. I was basically showing them I can write in the tone of your show, and I can deliver a little extra, and I can go the extra mile, and that person later staffed me. I'm not saying they did it because of the direct correlation, but it was like showing I'm reading what you want and delivering on it. You don't have to write whole articles. You can be really amazing at research. You can be really amazing at punching up jokes. Like Mike said, I'm terrible at that. Everybody knows what their own skill set is, and that's ideally what you're offering up to people you come in contact with, and they're going to be grateful.
Fabulous. Okay, and now let's go to Raul. You have had your emoji hand up for some time now, Raul. Thank you for your patience.
It's really not that important. They covered pretty much what they are saying is it's absolutely true. And I think all my jobs as a support staff came from my previous job as support staff. So my advice to people trying to get into this industry is do your job at your 100%. Always having in mind that, yeah, the goal is that script, but at the same time, you're hired to do your job. So you have to be good at that job first, and then the opportunities will come to you. If you're there supporting, which is why this is called a support staff position. But basically, it's what Mike and Lynn said perfectly fine, which is, yeah, what we're doing.
Absolutely, yes. So 100% all the time, because that is probably how you're going to get your next job. Very true, but sometimes hard to do. So I know we are doing the support staff panel in a week where there has been a lot of news and discussion on social media about the times when it's not so fun to be support staff or to be an assistant to particular individuals who I am Jewish, and in Jewish culture, when we really don't like someone, we say that may their name be forgotten. So we are not going to name any of these jerks. We're going to let their names be forgotten. But there's some bad stuff in the news this week. So I would love to open the floor for all of our support staff to just speak up on what do you think the biggest issue that support staff are facing that the wider industry needs to be aware of is, and what do you need from the industry and from upper levels in order to make that less of an issue right now? And this is a little tougher one to speak up on, but I'm trying to do it in a way that it gives you an opportunity to say what you need without having to necessarily imply anything about anybody you've worked with. I know Mike brought up short seasons as a real problem for support staff, making it hard to get that episode.
Short seasons are probably the biggest problem, and it feeds into everything that is a big problem for any writer's assistant or any support staffer. Because in the old days, like my first show was NCIS New Orleans, which did 24 episodes a year. So the staff would report in June, they worked until the end of April, they had a month off, and you knew if there was another season, you were coming back. So there was only 1 month you had to cover. My second show was Blood and Treasure, which was a 13 episode series for CBS, 13 episodes a season. And so we had 5 months in the writer's room. And that was from January to June of 2018. The show did not air until May of 2019, did not get its pickup for season 2 until June of 2019. And the staff assembled for season 2 in July of 2019. So right there, you see there's a full calendar year for me between those seasons. And in that case, your choice is either you stay available to go with the show that you don't know for a year is coming back, or you jump to another show and you're starting all over again, because the way you get an episode is often you've built up enough credibility on the show that your showrunner says, okay, we're giving you a half episode, we're giving you a full episode. And so for a lot of people, they're having to jump shows. You know, there's some people who would have done that first season and then would have to jump to another first season show. And maybe by the time season 2 comes up, they're not available because they've had to jump from that one to another show. And so there's this constant resetting of your career that happens because you can't afford to wait around for a season 2. And as seasons get shorter, it gets worse. There are shows that have 8 episode seasons. There are shows that have 10 episode seasons. And so I think everything comes from that, because you always have to have some other gig, whether it's a temp gig. It becomes even more important that you get a good rate on the show that you're on, and everything. But that's, I'm sure I'm forgetting stuff, but that's probably the biggest issue right now.
Yeah, and I've heard that from a lot of people. I mean, how are you supposed to truly have a portfolio of your work even as well to move up and hopefully get a staff job if you do get your first episode, or you get some lines in, you work on some scenes, and then that episode airs 2 years later when you've already had maybe 3 other jobs since then. So, and Emmy, you've been support staffing for several years. So what have you seen change in the time that you've been support staff, and what's the big issue now?
I have to say it's changed a lot. I've been an assistant in some capacity for 9 years. And obviously the most obvious shift has been the streaming and the moving away from network, which has been great because in a way it provides a lot more job opportunities. But like Adam was saying, you know, the short seasons can be a huge barrier. And sort of compounding with what he was saying, the pay is, I mean, it's pitiful, and it hasn't evolved from, I think, the 90s. I think we're pretty much making what they made in the 90s, and it's very hard to live in Los Angeles on this on a budget like that. So part of the other thing that Adam was saying, you know, can you afford to wait an entire year and stick it out for a show, or do you need to make a living somehow? So it's really, really hard to balance, you know, taking one risk for the other. But yeah, those are I mean, the other thing I would say, the barrier can be opportunity. A lot of shows, you can kind of get stuck as just seen as an assistant, and they kind of forget that you're there to eventually be a writer. And, you know, I totally get that there aren't always opportunities to be given to assistants, but showrunners who support their staff, their support staff to write and to pitch, like, that means everything to us to have those tiny little victories while we're making peanuts.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would love to also hear from Joe on this, because you are at this stage of looking for your first job in a room right now. I know you've applied to some writer's assistant jobs and you're looking to make that jump into the room. So what's the biggest issue facing the folks who are at that stage of they've got some industry experience and they want to?
Sorry, I missed that last part you said.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what is you're in the position of someone who has been on a agent desk and you're looking for your first job in the room, what are the big issues facing people at that stage right now? And if there's anything that you would love to see the industry do to help with that part of the pipeline?
I mean, right now, like it's just high congestion. Like you're talking about everybody that taking the year to actually like work on themselves and stuff like that, but also it's just not a lot of movement because of COVID. And you can even get to a lot of places that I've been hearing is that even the higher up writers, like even staff writers or story editors, are struggling to even get meetings now because things are just slowly going through. So I do think that as of right now, the opportunities are not there as much as they used to. However, I will say that within the year and a half that I've been in the industry about 6-7 years, and the one thing that has tremendously improved is the care for minorities and actually trying to get them over the hump, because we've established and we've seen that African Americans, or like generally any other minority, tend to become staff writers, maybe get up to story editor, and then we're bottlenecked, like they don't make it to the next step. And so there's been more activity and more efforts, such as Hollywood Here, which was specifically trying to get African Americans in front of showrunners, in front of upper level writers, so they can have those opportunities to show themselves up and be able to like hopefully just have that conversation. So maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, they go like, I remember that guy, and we can bring them up. Such as fellowships, like more fellowships coming up, like Mentorship Matters, where not just minorities, but LGBTQs, people can get their opportunities as well. So despite the fact that I do think that it's been tougher on a lot of angles, especially from coming from the agency side, but we used to, when I started there were a lot of assistants that were able to like move on to become either the showrunner assistant or the writer's assistant. And since I've left, it's been just like a lot of people who are ready for that next thing, but just not as many shows that are giving those opportunities. And COVID's part of that, the industry is part of that. But I will also give some credit where I have seen the push for the minorities, not as much as there should be, but a better push for them to not only get the staff writing gigs, but also getting the people who already have them to hopefully get up to mid-level and hopefully upper level as well.
This is such an informative conversation, and I'm seeing people in the chat saying that they're learning a lot. So I want to take this moment to mention for those who are on Twitter, I know not everyone is, nor necessarily should you be. It is kind of a hell site that I cannot get off of to save my life. But if you are in fact on Twitter, Final Draft is going to pick some people to give a free copy of Final Draft 12 to who tweet something that they are learning from this panel and tag at Final Draft Inc. and hashtag WGA Virtual Mix, all one word. So if you would like to potentially get Final Draft 12, one of these great things that these people are saying, throw it in a tweet and they will, our Final Draft team is going to be picking some winners. So that wanted to throw that out there after we just had some informative stuff about how to support our support staff, so that hopefully some people tweet about how important it is that our industry support, compensate, and promote our support staff. How is everybody? Is everybody okay on time? We've got so many great questions. I'd love to go a little over if everybody is okay with that. Okay, thank you. You are all amazing. So what Joe brought up about a better pipeline up the ladder for people who are underrepresented and marginalized in the industry is super important. And I would love to jump from that to having Mike talk for a moment about the WGA support staff training program that he has co-founded, co-launched, and is open for applications right now, right, Mike?
Yes, till I think May 10th, you have to check, but yes. We've already got, I believe, I checked a few days ago, it was almost 800 applications. So I'm sure it's going to go quite a bit higher than that. And the class size is 20 to 25 people. So we're going to hopefully hold this as many, 2 or 3, 3 times a year, hopefully maybe more than 3 times a year. But that's my first way of saying, if for some reason you don't get in, it's literally just there's a huge glut of people trying to do this. And it was started because, you know, just literally it's always an idea that's been in the back of my mind of like, why isn't there the Writers Guild has a showrunner training program, which is great. And at the same time, when you graduate from the showrunner training program, they don't hand you a show to go run. It just means you've had some training and, you know, you have a little bit of a leg up, and that's great. The writer's assistant and script coordinator jobs are, you know, for lack of a better, there's a lot of tasks that they're task-based. Those tasks can be taught. You can be prepared. It's still, to have a training program for that it's similar to the showrunner training program. You can't just emerge and just like jump in the deep end necessarily. But we realize there can be, you know, a way to prepare people to be very close to then, you know, be hired as a writer's assistant and then later a script coordinator. So, you know, Tanya reached out to me because someone asked her that they're looking for a person of color to be their writer's assistant, and they didn't know anybody. And Tanya's like, I'm so sick of being asked this. And Tanya's, you know, trying to, and that just led to this idea of like, how can we kind of like generate a list that's available to people who are trained in at least some way for this job, which then we paired with the Writers Guild Foundation, who was nice enough to organize the whole thing, and they're really doing a great job putting it all together. So Deb Easer and Clay LaPerry they've taught courses on this before. They're like writers, assistant, script coordinators extraordinaire. And so at the end, there'll be sort of a list of, it's like eight sessions, I believe, one a week. And at the end, they'll have graduated. And Sony is funding the first semester. We're hoping to include all the different studios and different entities to fund it. But the list then will be first with Sony, and then we'll try to get it out to every other place so that when, you know, so they can share it with their showrunners, and when shows are greenlit, we're going to push, you know, the next step is to push all the executives to make sure to tell their showrunners, first you go to that list, which is, you know, obviously we're focusing on all the underrepresented people who are not nearly enough in writers' rooms. And in that way, it's at least one more step towards diversifying writers' rooms, you know, at the, I know the phrase entry level is a bad way to describe it, but for lack of a better phrase, entry level, at least getting in the room, you know. Yeah. What else can I tell you?
Well, that is fantastic. That is, I'm going to put the link to that in the chat right now for anybody who's interested in going over and figuring out how to apply. And the great thing about this application also that I have seen looking at it here is that it is not a crazy amount of work to apply.
No.
It is a resume, a personal statement, and a statement about your experience. So thank you for that versus many other programs that make you do
also
80 hours of work.
Yes, and I realized also as we're getting a jillion applications, at one point I was like, we'll hold on to those applications. You won't have to apply every single time. I think at a certain point you'll have to reapply, but we'll have to figure that out. But it won't be like every 3 months you have to fill out write a whole new personal essay or whatever. It's not, as you say, it's not that much. I want to say one other thing too, because this, you know, what we're trying to do, I think it will be helpful, and I hopefully it'll make a little bit of difference. But, you know, the other side of the equation is more important. There's got to be a huge reckoning with the pay, because people can't afford to do these jobs, you know. And, you know, I've certainly had a realization about that over the last couple of years. You know, Liz Alper and everybody at Pay Up Hollywood has made it, put it on people's radar. But, you know, before the pandemic, I organized about 50 showrunners to sign a letter at Sony to, I guess I could use the word demand, but we didn't get that far, a raise in pay, because Sony is honestly one of the studios that's at the bottom as far as pay goes. And then the pandemic hit and everything got sidelined because there were layoffs. But I'm hoping to rekindle that movement again, because it really just has to be rectified. You know, we're living in a show business world where you have to be at a certain socioeconomic level to get your foot in the door, which obviously fights completely against people who are underrepresented getting their foot in the door. So I don't know what we can do besides yell at the people, but the people in power, not the other people, the people upstairs. Yeah. But we got to keep yelling, because that's just got it's true that the pay is not, it's like completely stagnated. I mean, writers' salaries have stagnated. So writers' assistant and script coordinators' salaries have super stagnated, you know? So yes, that's got to change. The program that we're running is one piece, just in terms of opportunities and availability and access, but the pay is the big piece.
Absolutely. And for anybody who is new to the industry or coming in from outside the industry and doesn't know what Mike is saying about showrunners writing a letter to Sony, this took me a while to learn. The showrunner is not, even though their role is very much like the CEO of a small company in many ways, unlike the CEO of a small company, they don't actually get to decide what to pay their employees. So nobody gives them a salary pool and says, you get to decide how much of this goes to the writer's assistant, how much goes to the co-EP. For the writers who are part of the union, that is, there are union rules and then negotiation with their representatives. And then for support staff, the studio, such as in Mike's case, Sony, they have the rate that they pay their support staff, and that is their business. So frequently, I've heard many stories, and maybe some of you all can relate to this. I've heard stories where the studio is, to put it politely, not acting in the best interest of assistant level people on shows, and the showrunner doesn't even know. So these are all situations that, you know, you would not know thinking about getting this job. You'd think the person offering you the job is also the person who decides what to pay you. Not the case. I know Adam has a small human being, Adam M has a small human being in his house that he helped to make, that he has to feed at some points tonight. So before he goes to do that, a lot of questions that have come in are about being support staff when you're not 22 and a recent college grad with no children and no major responsibilities in your home life. So I cannot even list out all the names of people who've asked about either age or family status, or are the hours even suitable for parenting? So can you do this job at beyond your early 20s with no responsibilities? Can you balance it with parenting? How are you doing it?
I have a very understanding wife, and until the pandemic, we had a great daycare that was fortunately close to home and close to our office. And my wife works in casting. She's a casting director. And so there have been times where we've been fortunate enough, she has been off when I've been on, and other times we just try to make it work. You know, he had, daycare all day, and sometimes we'd have a babysitter pick him up and we'd pick him up from the babysitter. Other times, I've been very fortunate to be in rooms that have been consistent at ending at around 6 o'clock. And so, or sometimes before that. And so you can sometimes do that. In other instances, my showrunners have been understanding about, oh, you've got a kid, if you need to leave early, you can, because I've also been very lucky that the writers' PAs have been good at, filling in for the last 30 minutes of the day when necessary. So a lot of it comes down to how well you are at, how much of your situation you control, what you can afford, who your partner is in that case, and what their schedule and what their flexibility is. Because I did not get my first job in TV until I was 35. So there's no real barrier at age-wise. It's just a matter of what you're able to support yourself on, if you have two incomes in the family, and where you're wanting to devote your resources so that you have someone looking after, your kid.
Absolutely. And of course, this is yet another reason that we need to see support staff compensation go up in the near future, is so that, again, people are not having to choose between, do you want to have a family and actually be able to feed them once in a while, or do you want to get your foot in the door in TV? So we would love to see that change. Another really popular question, and I think everyone is calling in from LA here, so we may have to do just what we've heard, but I do want to acknowledge that a lot of people are asking, has COVID made it more possible to do a support staff job from somewhere else where maybe it is a little easier to live on that kind of the wages that support staff get right now? Is it possible to just zoom in from somewhere the cost of living is lower for the time being? And how long do we think that might last, if so?
I'll take this one just because I've seen this question a lot. I've been asked this question a lot by people, and I think as it said, support staffer is not a job you get as like an entry-level job. All of us who got this job, certainly maybe, had we known this was going to go on for a year, I know there were a couple people on my show who went to Colorado, went to one place or another for some of the pandemic, and they were able to do that because they were established here and they had worked here and they had gotten the job. If I was still in Ohio where I grew up, I don't know if I would be able to put much stock in being able to get a job remotely entirely from Ohio without ever setting foot in LA, without ever networking, without ever knowing people, because every single job I've gotten in this business has come from some kind of personal connection or a contact or a relationship in a previous job. So it's possible that, if there's an established writer who is living, out in Hawaii and they get hired on a show as a mid-level, that probably can happen. I don't know if these remote rooms are going to keep up, after the pandemic ends, but there's at least a possibility there. If any of you is like a recent college grad or thinking, oh, maybe I don't have to move to LA to break in, I would just ask, what's your plan then for networking, for breaking in, because it's going to be a lot harder than sending in a resume, because any of these jobs get thousands of resumes within hours of the posting. And by the time it's posted, it's already gone out internally at the agencies and everybody's putting their friends out there. So is it physically possible? Yes. Is it plausible that you'll get that job? Probably not. And I hate being the buzzkill for everyone because everyone wants to believe the remote rooms as a solution to not having to move to LA. And I'll gladly be proven wrong on this, but that's my take on it, knowing how long it took me just to break in while being here. And I think it's probably a good time. I've got to run, guys, but it was nice virtually meeting all of you. And yeah, this was a fun panel, so take care.
Bye,
Nice
Adam
killing
M.
run.
Thank you.
I
Thank
love
you.
that.
Yes.
And I'm glad he said it because I was going to if he wouldn't. But, I think all of us wish that there were lower barriers to access, including location, for all of these jobs. But I don't think we're there right now for all of the reasons he outlined. And I do still encourage people to locate themselves sort of in the nucleus of where it's all happening. And it's very hard to find those spaces on the internet. The WGA even created an entire staffing board for WGA members, which already, if you're in it, you've exceeded certain requirements. And I have to say, it's been fully dead since our agency battle ended. So even when the space exists, whether people are using it or not is a big question. And I think that you can be really productive in a city where you're surrounded. So that is just my personal, and I do think rooms are coming back sooner rather than later. I kind of hope they do for my sanity, but I get the feeling that there's a swell of interest.
Our writers have been debating this all year, pretty much. Will we stay virtual when we have the option? And in our environment, we all hate it, and we can't wait to meet each other in person and do this for real. Because there's a different energy when you are speaking all day over a camera versus sitting in a room with people and riffing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think people are split where obviously Zoom rooms are easier in some ways for, for instance, for people who have disabilities. It's been kind of a godsend because if you live with a physical disability, then it can be very difficult to get yourself to and from a building that may or may not be accessible for your particular accessibility needs every day. So I would hope, as we're talking about ways that the industry could change to be more accessible, in all ways to all underrepresented people, one of those ways might be to have participating remotely continue to be more of an option for certain roles, but unfortunately, probably not for a lot of these assistant roles, because it is, once rooms come back, it is so critical that the assistants be in the room, helping the room run smoothly. Another thing that we've had kind of a few versions of this question in the chat that maybe we can get some great nuggets of wisdom from all of our current support staff on is, once you are lucky enough to get one of these amazing jobs, what is maybe we'll go to all of our current support staff, and what is your number one tip to be the most awesome person in that job that your bosses have ever had? I think I see Raul unmuting.
I would say anticipate, because at the end of the day, we're here to make people's lives or jobs easier. So anticipate what can be a problem for sure. And also try to be nice. I was very surprised when I started, people would say like, you're just so nice now. And I would always think, I'm just being normal. Who have you worked with before? And apparently it's because in this industry, there's a lot of assholes, and luckily that is changing. But I noticed that if you treat people the way you want to be treated, you usually have an easier job. And that has worked really well for me. So I would recommend to always try your 100% or 110% at what your job really is. And then, yeah, try to, anticipate things. I remember for a very specific case, for example, there was a room where the writers on Vida had the copy machine, and the room had nothing but the copy machine, and then 1,000 boxes and bags from lunch. And it was just there. Nobody thought it could be something else. So I just put everything together. I threw everything that had to be thrown away, and there was another space that was used for something else. This is very stupid and very minuscule, very, very small, but it helped to create another thing to the room, and the writers appreciate it. So things like that, it's are things that you can. And then obviously, as a script coordinator, you have other examples. I cannot think about real examples right now, but it's basically anticipating. I will let people talk. Also, can I say something? Because I have seen I have seen a bunch of questions regarding unions. I wanted to say something really fast because it kind of ties to what we're talking about salaries and everything. Writers' assistants and script coordinators have a union, the coordinators union, which is great because they are support, but also writers, PAs, and showrunners assistants don't have unions. They are not unionized. So what happens right now with streamers, what I'm seeing that is happening is that as the salaries go lower for everybody, because at the end of the day, the writers, assistants, PAs, set PAs, and the salary of the showrunners assistant is very similar. Some of us don't have the support of a union. And I was able to negotiate because I have been doing this for 3 or 4 years, so I knew better, and I decided to just go ahead and negotiate my salary, and I was able to get a little bit more. But other assistants in the same position, a level entry or assistant entry, would be making less than me, even though nobody's regulated that. So yeah, there's unions, and it's great to be in a union, and it's great to actually speak up and try to negotiate if you can, because you won't get it if you don't say it, if you don't ask for it. And I'm gonna shut my face and let people talk.
Fantastic. All right, let's go. Shall we go to Emmy next? What is your top tip for being the most awesome support staff that your boss has ever had?
Similar to what Raul was saying, your attitude goes a long way. All of the jobs that we do, you can learn, and these are things that you can learn and get better at, but having a positive attitude and saying yes to things, even if it doesn't exactly fit your job description, and just being game to help out in any way. I would say that that takes you pretty far. And kind of what Lynn was saying, just being able to shoot the shit with the writers and the other people, and just hanging out and being friends and being social and just getting to know the people that you spend so much time with. That's my favorite part of the job. And so I try and take advantage as much as possible, which is another reason why Zoom rooms are the pits, because there's way less of that.
Absolutely, totally. One of the I think most undervalued by people who are just beginning to think about a writing career. One of the most undervalued traits to develop is just being a pleasant person to be around. It means so much. You are going to spend more time in the room with the writers that you are working with than you spend with your own family. So you would ideally like those to be pleasant people. I see you nodding, Adam. Let's hear your, what is your superscript coordinator tip?
Especially in script coordinating, I guess, know who, not that you can't, you can never say no, but know who you're saying yes to. Like, it's always the showrunner above studio and above network. I know it's going to sound like I'm kissing ass here, but it's really the right answer. Like, he might ask you or she might ask you to do something that's not what the studio has asked for, and they're always the one to say yes to, because they're the people who will go to bat for you and defend you and make sure you don't get fired for something. The other way around, studio network, you're just a number, you're just a name on a page, they could care less about you. So it's the showrunner first, and I guess show first too, but you know what I mean. Showrunner is the person who you're always trying to be on the right page with, because they will go to bat for you and they will recommend you on your next show. They'll write your letter of recommendation, and they're the people that, I guess, if you're concerned with moving up, that's who you're always trying to impress.
How about Mike gets out a mic. He gets out a external microphone to underline showrunner rules. Yes, the as they always said on Children of Tendu, which if anyone, the podcast is over, but great podcast to listen to if anyone has not gone through the archives yet. I serve at the pleasure of the president, meaning the showrunner. Joe, how do you be the best assistant that somebody has ever had on their desk at an agency or management company?
The best thing is anticipating. I kind of mentioned it earlier at the start, and it is pretty much when you know your boss has a meeting at 2, for example, or 2:30. I guess give them 30 minutes after lunch ends. You know they have a meeting, and then you know that what it's going to be about. And so after that meeting, you know the next step. Knowing to give your bosses or the heads up as to like, okay, these are the things you need to know about the client that it refers to. Just having that line of vision and knowing and seeing what their future steps and being ready for them before they can even think of it, because at the end of that meeting, they got to move on to the other meetings. But the fact that you've already thought of it, so by the time at the end of the day, they're like, oh, okay, so I have to do A, B, C, D. You already, hey, I have A, B, and C, sent you an email already, I'm already got you. You also have these calls you have to do tomorrow. Just anticipating, like going back to just making their jobs as easy as possible, as smooth as possible, because there's going to be times that human moments happen, like everyone makes mistakes. But like, I think the anticipation helps them live their lives, but also it just limits and lowers the amount of mistakes you make as well, because you've covered it. So I think anticipation, I think it's the number one, at least on the agency managerial side, just knowing what's coming and being on top of it is the number one thing to help you in the agency management world.
For sure. Oh, I need to get to the point in my life where I can have an assistant who does that for me, because that sounds freaking great. I would like someone to anticipate what I'm going to need before I even know that I need it. Wouldn't that be nice?
Also, and I also kind of want to just like slightly add, breathe. It's we all have hard jobs. It is going to be stressful, and there are times when higher ups will be frustrated with you about certain things. And my favorite story I tell everybody, I was covering the desk for the president of Fox, which was the highest position I'd ever covered or done ever in my life. And so I was kind of nervous. So I go and I'm learning about the stuff. And the president walks in, he shakes my hand, and he literally tells me, we're not, if anyone gets frustrated with you, you let me know. We're not curing cancer, it's television. And just hearing that from him, like, that's my mantra for everything. It's like, yes, take your job seriously. Yes, take their instructions seriously and all the things. But ultimately, if things get like rough, take a moment, breathe, and then move forward. Don't rush through things, just take a moment. It is okay. We're not curing cancer. No one's going to die. It's television. Not to say television isn't important, but just taking a moment.
I love that. Yes. No, that takes me back to when I was at Yahoo, which at the time was a very large company that existed. It now is a small division of Verizon. Sad times. But when I was at Yahoo and Yahoo used to be huge, I had a coworker who had done many day labor type jobs before he broke into tech. And his line to anybody who was having an absolute meltdown about some tiny thing like the color of the font on the Yahoo News homepage was, "This isn't work. Digging ditches is work." So yes, this is same vibes. Chill. We're making TV. We get to do like the best job that there is, that exists. For the folks listening in here, also want to point out that there's Emily in the chat is hooking up an after party. So if you are not looking at the chat right now, if you want to hang out with some of the other attendees afterwards, Emily Ashragi posted a WonderMe link as well as a Google Docs link to a contact sheet if anybody wants to connect. So a lot of our panelists have underlined the importance of networking. And when they say networking, they don't just mean networking with people who can give you jobs right now, because those people already probably have a lot of people that they would like to give jobs. It is far more important to network with people at your level who will be moving up with you. So take some of those opportunities that Emily is setting up. Thank you, Emily, for doing that for the attendees of this panel, to meet some people who are coming up in the ranks at the same time that you are. And last but very much not least, Stephanie, how do you be the best showrunner's assistant that the showrunner has ever had?
I was with Marvin and Linda like for maybe 3 years total, 4 years. So I feel like really getting to know the person that you're working for and being able to know kind of like their mannerisms, what do they like, what don't they like. And I think being able to work with both of them really helped me kind of get a perspective on that and be able to kind of be like, okay, well, I think this person likes when I send an email at the end of the day with all the reminders I need to do, or this person likes to sit down with me and just kind of, just kind of understand the kind of person that they are and stuff. And I think it was really good for to make friends with like the other assistants. Like I made friends with the PAs on set, and I think it just made it a little bit lighter and funner. And then like, again, like having Fran, who was the script coordinator / writer's assistant, being able to remind each other, like Joseph said, just breathe, you're killing it, you're doing it. Like this is, just being able to remind each other. And also I think a big tip is like reminding the showrunners to do the same thing, like reminding them that they're like badass, like they're doing so much, and just being able to kind of be that cheerleader. Like I feel like that's such a big and important part of being like a showrunner's assistant, is just being able to alleviate some of the stress and just kind of remind them and like have them, remind them to breathe and stuff. So yeah, I think that's really important. But I also want to talk about like the pay too, like coming from digital and doing a lot of that stuff. I worked in branded, I did a lot of like tech related things. I came into this job and I was like, what? No wonder people are so mad all the time, about the pay and stuff for showrunners assistants and everything. Like I didn't really get perspective until I was in this role. And I was like, oh wow, like Mike was saying, a lot of low income people of color are definitely not gonna be able to make it or just continue to do this role. I think it's really important for us to bring that up. And there's just so many things related to that like not having a union is like, I think a big part of that. So yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Like, let's talk about it for anybody who, and like, you don't have to say what you're making right now, but like, can we throw out for the people who have not had the access to even get to the point of being offered one of these jobs and finding out what it pays? What do these jobs pay, rough range? Let's start with, let's kind of go up the ladder. Let's start with like, what do you get paid, range, average, if you are on a desk at an agency, Joe?
I'm pretty sure that you get, when you start as a trainee, or sorry, when you start as a intern, I believe it's 14 per hour. And then once you become a trainee or get on the desk for the first year, it's roughly 15, 16. And then like if you're there for a year, you kind of get like your bump is like $1 plus ish per hour. So when I left, I was getting 17 per hour, like 17.10 per hour. With, of course, because of agency, all of the overtime, just all of it.
Yes, overtime for anybody who is not yet working one of these jobs. Another of the things that I, as a career changer, learned is how much of these support jobs depend on overtime. In fact, one of the issues that I have heard from a lot of folks is that the studios are now pushing back on what used to be a 60-hour guarantee. And now they're not wanting to give you all your 60 hours, which would mean that you get 40 hours of your normal pay and 20 hours of overtime, which dramatically changes your pay versus not getting overtime. Like double,
Yeah,
literally
agencies,
double. So.
When the writers fired all the agents, I was on the TV lit side. So the only reason I was able to keep my overtime was because I was working for 2 agents, but I was the only person on my team with 2 agents. So everyone that has been used to doing like the 60 hours and plus all got reduced to 40 and could not do more than that. And that really, really hit a lot of people. And some people, like not many, but like I know a person who had to leave because there was no way we're gonna, and then UTA learned and they, fixed it so people can actually like afford. So to be fair, they fixed it. But it can be scary a bit when you don't have this overtime.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, that is literally giving people a pay cut if they have grown to expect it. That is literally a pay cut that you don't have to sell as a pay cut. Oh, it's just we're not giving you overtime. But no, it's a pay cut if you have become accustomed to living on regular overtime every single week, and that was part of the job when you took the job. That's called a pay cut. What about a WPA? What does a WPA make on average? I think Raul is our only person left who has done that job because we lost Adam M.
It tracks with what Joseph was saying. I'm gonna say cable network, in my experience, was the best I had in terms of salary, and also box rental, the quantity of the box rental and the number of weeks for it to cut. When I moved to streamer, I had to get a pay cut. And the box rental was significantly, I'm going to say half of it, of what I was making in cable.
And when you say box rental, that's the fee that they give you for providing your own equipment, right?
Correct. So for using, if you're using your laptop or printers, I mean, generally it's just a laptop. And also when I was on Vida, my phone was also paid, which was wonderful. And now we are in a pandemic. We use the laptops a lot more, probably our printers at home. We use everything a lot more, and yet it's lower and it caps earlier. So it's kind of disappointing. I mean, there's always good, but it's terrible that we're moving in this direction, and I hope it changes. I would say, I would encourage people to speak up and to don't take jobs that, like, for example, if they ask me, I'm lucky that I have always been offered a 60 weeks guaranteed, but I think I'm gonna say no if I ever get an offer that doesn't include that, because there's no way I can survive in this city with that type of money. But what I also think is that at the same time, I have the chance to work for an industry that is, it's expected that I write. Like, you cannot have a day job. You cannot have a day job at a cafe or at a restaurant and then write whenever you have 5 minutes. But what I'm doing right now, if I have a little bit of downtime, I'm expected to write, and that is fantastic. Like the writers would ask me, "What are you writing? What are you doing?" Which is another reason why Amy was very right when she said that we hope we get back to rooms, is because you have that proximity of interacting with the writers and talking to the writers and see somebody in the hallway and ask questions. You cannot do that over Zoom. So the good thing is that we work on that on this industry, and we can write, and we're expected to write, and the conversations are about writing and about shows. So that makes it amazing. But yeah, the pace.
100%. And then what do we I know it varies for different people where the next kind of step on the ladder is in the support staff between showrunner's assistant and writer's assistant. But writer's assistant, do you start then versus hourly? Do you start moving up a little bit and making a little more of your money from things like script fees if you get a script? Like, what's the money look like as a writer's assistant?
My previous job, I was showrunner's assistant / like on a pod deal at Overall. I was making $18.50 there an hour, and I actually took a pay cut to get bumped up to writer's assistant.
Oh, no.
So I make $16 an hour. That's the union minimum. And I only have 40 hours guaranteed. So it's actually significantly less than what I was making in my last job, which was brutal. And yes, if you get a script, you do get a script fee ordinarily, but I know that there's a whole other issue with staff writers not even getting script fees, and they get paid weekly, and that's a whole other can of worms. But script fees are also something you really have to fight for.
Oh geez, well, this is why this is so hard for people who are not coming in with a trust fund, generational wealth, some other form of support to do this job, is because they're and you're not, I imagine you are not strictly doing 40 hours of work, right, Emmy?
Oh no.
So you are getting paid for 40 hours, but that does not mean that you actually have time outside those 40 hours we've had a couple of questions about working a second job to survive as a writer's assistant. You don't have time for that, do you?
I mean, it's a little easier with Zoom rooms. I will say the one advantage is we have shorter room hours. So it's possible, but at the same time, I lost my side gigs that I had going because of the pandemic. They all just kind of evaporated. So you can't win, really.
And our script coordinators we've had Raul and Adam have both done script coordinators. Are they in the same range as well? Do they get paid a little more?
It depends. It's show to show, because like even as he said, the streamers, I've had a job where they said, okay, you're the script coordinator officially, but you're the showrunner's assistant and you're the writer's PA. 3 jobs at one, and the salary was absolute garbage. And it wasn't one show that I was on, it was 2 shows that I were on that had the same exact attitude. So there is a very nightmarish. The last 2 jobs I had were also for streamers, and they were weekly rates. So at least I went up a bit. The one that I'm currently at is the 3rd time I've gone up a bit, and it's still just $12.50 a week. And that to me is the most I've made in this kind of writer's room situation that I've been in since 2015. And it's better than others that I've heard, and it's worse than others that I've heard. So it's kind of nothing consistent. I'm now unionized, so I'm very happy about that. But we'll see if that changes my check. I don't think it will, because they're still used to paying people what they pay people. And the other thing is, what they don't tell you is with a weekly rate, or if guaranteed 60, you're still expected to put in way more than that, because it's being a team player, right? And if you're not the team player, you're not going to make the impression, and they're not going to bring you on to the next project. So even if you're telling the accountants these 60 hours a week, every week, that's all they see. Your showrunner's expecting 7 days a week for 5 weeks in a row, because we've just moved into production, that kind of thing, and you're not going to say no. So it's pressure from both sides, both the people on your team and the people who are just studio accountant kind of situation. That's the only scary thing to keep in mind.
Are you part of Local 871 now, Adam? Is that where you're unionized?
Yep. Yahtzee.
Okay, so IATSE, yes. So for folks who are familiar with the WGA, that is not the union that represents support staff at this time. It is IATSE Local 871, which is a union, but is not WGA membership. So despite the fact that writers assistants are often seen as trainee staff writers, they do not get to go into the same union that staff writer will be in. All right, so we've done the down.
Can
Yes,
I say one?
please.
I just want to say one thing about the
Of course.
pay, just because it's very case by case to do this, but I'm just recommending, if you have a shot at your showrunner fighting for you to get a little more money, definitely take it. The studio is loath to, they want to establish a precedent and they don't want to go over it, but they do want to keep the showrunner happy. So the standard for this pay right now, needs to be to get everybody up. But on a case-by-case basis, the showrunner can sometimes, and I have done this, convince the studio to, monkey with the budget a little bit, and just for one individual or two individuals, somehow get them a little more money. So they have creative ways of essentially not admitting that they're paying you more, but it still can hopefully funnel, some extra money to the people who are making the least. So anyway, that's just if you have a close relationship or even a tenuous relationship with the showrunner that you're being hired by, if you have a hope that they will help you, you should take your shot with that.
Yes, only the absolute biggest jerks of jerks would think less of you for saying, hey, it's hard to pay my bills on $16.50 an hour, because it's hard to pay your bills on $16.50. That's just fact. You're just stating facts at that point. So while I have Mike on here, there are a bunch of people who are asking about the support staff training program because of the question asking about your writing experience. How much experience are you really looking for people to come into that program?
In the program, you mean writing experience, or because no support staff experience? That shouldn't be a thing. Writing experience is just, you should be, people who want to be writers, but it can be people right out of school. We're not reading people for the program or anything like that. So it's just aspiring writers really who want to use writer assistant, script coordinator positions to get their foot in the door.
Wonderful. Okay, so for all of you who are asking how much experience you need to have to apply, you do not need to have any support staff experience. Just want to be a writer. I will post that link one more time for anybody who joined late. And while I'm doing that, again, for Mike and Lynn, our two folks who have gone through the process, broken in and moved up the ranks already, can you maybe share, just as we get ready to wrap up this panel, just share an anecdote of a moment that you saw someone in a support staff program or a support staff role, really stand out and shine in your book, if something comes to mind?
Lynn, you want to go?
Yeah, I can take it. I just finished an incubator program where I got to run a room for my own project for the first time, and no experience doing that. So I was learning on the fly. Day 2 of my mini room, the writer's assistant emailed me a bunch of research into the area where I was setting my pilot, which I had very little familiarity with. Number one, maybe don't set your pilot somewhere where you don't know, but that's beyond the point. He knew that area and he had friends there, and he offered them up as personal contacts should I want to reach out as well. I was just blown away, and I was like, oh, is this what it's like to be a showrunner? People offer you like the work that you would have had to do on your own time. That really stuck with me. And I have, per my comment earlier, I've sent his resume everywhere because he just it made such a strong impression.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat a little bit, I think, and say, because I've worked with many great writer assistants, script coordinators, but my favorite thing is, during One Day at a Time, everybody pitches alt jokes, and we have a giant packet of alt jokes that alternate jokes that we go onto the floor with, and then we tape the show. And if we want to switch out a joke, then we got our list there. So everybody, that's like the tape day activity, and everybody participates. And again, the support staff, if they want to, also pitches. And the jokes are not, nobody's name is by them. So they're just a list of jokes. You don't know who pitched them. So it's always my favorite thing when a joke gets in that's like absolutely kills, and you find out it was your writer assistant. And that's happened so many times. It's a delight, because you're like, you're so looking forward to them moving up the chain and becoming writers. And you're like, these, all these great, we have a whole staff of writers sitting around thinking of jokes, and then who breaks through but the person who's also doing everything to support those people. It's just a very wonderful feeling to see them break through like that.
And I can validate that, having followed Mike on Twitter for several years, every time he live tweets an episode of one of his shows, like almost every time there will be a moment where he's like, and that joke was from our writer's assistant, wasn't it great? So
I need another show. Give me I need a show. That's all. Get another show.
All right. The gods of TV, please give Mike another show so that he can hire some of us and be a good boss, because we all need a good boss.
Give everybody
we'll
get a show, and then we'll work for each other.
Yes, please. Okay. So, well, I'm going to ask one last question of everybody. Before I do that, I want to remind the folks who are still listening in of 3 things. Number 1, there are still copies of Final Draft 12 potentially up for grabs on Twitter. The Final Draft team is going to choose people. That is like $200 software, so please do not sleep on this. If you do not yet have Final Draft 12, tweet tagging @Final Inc. and hashtag WGA Virtual Mix, and tweet something that you learned from this panel tonight for a chance to win Final Draft 12. Thing 2, Emily Asragi, again, is putting together a networking little after party and a contact sheet for people who attended this panel. Get on that. She just posted it again in the chat. Do that peer networking. And number 3, I will put in the chat one more time the bit.ly to join the WGA Virtual Mix Discord community, where we have perpetual chat and support and solidarity. And every Friday, roughly every Friday, we have some sort of fun event. Joe is actually also doing an Oscar party on Sunday for WGA Virtual Mix, which is yet another wonderful opportunity to win a copy of Final Draft 12 if you win our silly little Oscar pool that Joe is running, that has some questions that you may not find in other Oscar pools. So check that out, jump on Discord, look for the Oscar party information in the general channel. And if you don't win Final Draft on Twitter, maybe you will win it at the Oscar party with our Discord group on Sunday. Okay, so final question for everybody. I am a firm believer that you do not have to wait to be on top of the world to do things that support the changes that we would like to see in the industry. You can start at any point in your career through your own daily actions in your life. So I would love to go around and hear from everybody on the panel before we wrap this up. What is one thing that you would like to see everybody who has taken the time to attend this panel today do to collectively push the industry forward to a place that is better for support staff? Let's start with Stephanie.
Like the people here in the panel, or just in general, Hollywood?
Everybody, the people listening, everybody. You've got 157 people you're talking to right now. What do you want to see all 157 of those people do as they go through their lives, whether it's as TV consumers, as people working in TV? What do we want them to do?
I think it's important to keep telling your story, whether it's writing, directing, making short films, whatever way that you create. I think it's like very important for yourself to kind of feed that like creative side of you, but also for other people to see, because I feel like that's kind of where it all starts. Like, you know, for Gentefied, Marvin and Linda did this web series who eventually turned into a TV show. They were never in a room before. Like they're like kind of like the odd people out, but like they became showrunners of their show. and they kind of did it in a like non-traditional way. So I feel like anything is like literally possible. And I think our stories, like I'm very advocate for like Latinx stories. So I feel like we need to have more shows for us to have more of those positions, more of those support staff positions, and more of feeling seen. Like I think it was like so great for me to be able to be a showrunner assistant for Gentefied, because I just felt seen throughout, and it was so nice to work on a show that I relate to so much. So having more of those shows I think is really important, and yeah, it creates more jobs for us.
Absolutely, yes. And watch these shows, watch diverse shows. You don't need to watch the show that everybody's watching. You can, it's fun, but like watch the shows and tweet about the shows and post about the shows that you really want to see more of and that are like the shows that you want to create. So important. All right, Joe, what do you want to see people do to push the industry towards a better place?
I think that the number one thing, especially coming from, I'll say that the agencies kind of don't get the best rep as far as behaviors. And I think one of the ways that you can step by it is, I'm gonna copy Stephanie a bit and just say, constantly talk to people about it. Talk to people about Paige. Talk to people about abuses. Talk to people about, and when I say people, like your close friends, the interns that are coming in, to give them like, hey, just have an idea of this. So that way, the more people talk about these things, the less of a taboo it is to talk about it, because that's the thing that works opposite, is when people feel like I can't talk about a thing and then it never changes. It's when you're talking with other people about it, when they realize this is wrong, and then that this is wrong gets louder and louder and louder until you get the Hollywood Reporter going like, hey, assistants have been complaining about getting paid. I wonder if this is a problem. And that starts by somebody talking to other people about it and not being quiet about it. We're in a generation where the TikTokers can shut down an entire Trump event. We can get to a point where we can, by talking about it, we can actually invoke change. And so I know that like that's the most easy answer, just like talking about it, but really there is power in numbers, and to do that is you being open to talking about it with other people. And then if I can add a second one, blow up your friends. Like seriously, like when you like on your social handles, if you have somebody that you think is amazing and wonderful and you see their hustle and you really want to put them up on your Twitter. And even if you only have 5 followers in this industry, it takes only one yes. And you don't know who that person is that's going to connect you to that next thing. So also just like look at your people, be like, I think these people are awesome. Blow them up on your Twitter, your Instagram, your Facebook, if people are still using that, TikTok, whatever. Just like make sure you go like, these people are amazing. And if enough people do that, maybe we don't need a WGA list. Maybe we just use those platforms to find the people if more people just talked about it. So thesis statement, talk more.
Yes, talk about all the things, talk about the good things, talk about the bad things, talk about your friends. All right, Adam, what would you like to see everybody do?
You know, I can't top what either one of them said. I don't think there's an even point in me trying. So I will just second that and third that and cede my time, I guess, to somebody who has a better idea, because I certainly don't.
This is like the exact opposite of the I yield my time, fuck you video. This is like, I yield my time, you're great. How about you, Emmy?
Take care of yourself. There are going to be some days you cannot create, your brain won't work, especially in the last year. It's been very, very mentally draining. Give yourself a break. We've touched on the abusive work environment situations. Leave them. Like, they're not the places that are going to help you in your career anyway. Do not put yourself through that, and just protect your mental well-being, because you can only create, and you'll do your best creating when you're content and you feel safe and you're happy with yourself, and that takes a lot of work to do.
Amen to that. Amen to that. If only it was easier and more accessible for everybody to get all of the self-care and all of the mental health care that they need. This is one of my many dreams for when I'm a big showrunner with a 9-figure overall deal, is to fund a whole bunch of like free therapy places and strip malls.
Yes, and take social media breaks because it can be brutal.
100. All right, Raul, what do you want to see everybody do?
Maybe lift each other up. I think when you win, people around you should also feel like it's winning, and it's important to shout out. It's important to elevate voices. It's important to do your own research and educate yourself on other people's realities, and understand why, you know, we all need to push together, otherwise we won't move. And it's crazy to say that everybody should be assistants to feel how it is to be an assistant and support staff. When I say assistant, I mean support staff. But it would be so great if a lot of people that get power handed like this had been in this position before, because they would know how to talk, how to communicate in a way that is like, oh, I have been there before, so I therefore know how to ask you for things, versus just, I'm not saying that I've been very lucky with all my gigs, I have to say. But it's true what I hear from friends that sometimes it's difficult to get a good communication with the bosses or with the higher ups. So I would say chill, calm down, and you know, let's do this together, which is kind of like peace for the world, but it's kind of like what we all want, I believe. And let's create things, let's make things happen on TV.
Yes. Absolutely. Chill and create instead of Netflix and chill. Chill and make Netflix. Chill and put stuff on Netflix or the other novel streaming platforms such as Peacock and Apple Plus. Lynn, what do you want to see everybody do to bring the industry forward?
These are all so much healthier and better than my suggestion, but I will say an easy one is to put your eyeballs where your politics are. Anybody can do that right now. Shows go away because studios and networks lose faith that they're going to find their viewership, and they don't take accountability for how they market it and all of that. We know these things. However, if you're a fan, go hard. Get people to watch the little show that could, you know, like Schitt's Creek, for example, or One Day at a Time, Gone Too Soon, RIP One Day at a Time.
But saved by the fans for one season, like literally got canceled, and the fans were like, no, you can't cancel this.
You know, if your outrage is loud enough and big enough, they do have to listen. But it's just a good practice. Put your eyeballs where your politics are, unless it's Fox News, in which case don't. The second thing I would say is, if you are early in your journey as a creative, if you're a recent grad or moving out of something in life into this new thing, and you're still figuring out exactly where your place in the industry is, where you'll get your foot in the door, stay open to different paths. Not everybody is a TV writer in the end, and there is still incredible value to those other jobs. Just as crucial as the person who is pitching the concept is the executive who goes hard for it in their boardroom and gets it made, gets it funded. We need people that look like America in every single one of those spaces. I mean, we need to diversify executive ranks as well as writing ranks. So please keep an open mind. And just know that you may be valuable somewhere you haven't even thought of yet. That would be my second bit.
I love it. And last but not least, Mike Rice, besides applying to the support staff training program, what would you like to see everybody do?
Everybody said amazing things. You should follow all those things. I didn't get my first writing job till I was 35. You know, it's to people get worried about falling behind or whatever. There is no falling behind. Just keep moving. Support Pay Up Hollywood, hashtag Pay Up Hollywood. Follow Liz Alper, and anything that anything that comes out about that, you should be all over that, because that's the biggest movement to get the pay situation where it should be. And if you don't have a writers group, it seems like everybody who's on this Zoom probably has thought about this, but cultivate your little community. There's networking, which is great, and you want to expand your circle, but your community of writers that you trust to give your stuff. It's just, writing is I like writing alone, but it's not good to feel alone, and you can really feel writing leads to a lot of alone time, and you can start to really feel like you're isolated, especially in Los Angeles, especially during this time. So really, cultivate your group, the people that you trust. And then, no disrespect to everybody else's show, but watch Hentified. It's fucking great. It's so fucking good. You got to watch. If you haven't watched Hentified, immediately do it now.
And season 2 is coming
so
out
good.
soon, so.
Bless. It is so good. It's so good. I've gotten like 4 calls from people that I told to watch it who called me mad because they didn't make it. They're like, why did somebody make the show that I always wanted to make, but better than I could ever make it? So yes, absolutely seconds to that. But watch all of the shows. I'll put the spelling. I saw a couple people asking what it is in the chat. It is on Netflix, but like Lynn said, watch all of the shows that match what you do want to see in the world. So that is a great, these are all great notes to end on. So yes, I will say amen to all of that. 100% red 100 emojis, flame emojis to everything just said at that last question. And thank you all for coming, and especially to those of you who stuck out this whole thing when we went way over, but there were just so many good things being said and so many good questions. And we had 8 people on our panel, and there was just no way that I was ending after an hour. So this is just what happened. This is just what had to happen. So thank you so much all for attending, and have a wonderful rest of your Friday night. And I will remind you again, tweet to win a copy of Final Draft 12 at Final Draft Inc. #WJ Virtual Mix. I put in the chat the Twitter handles to follow all of our panel. Follow and support these folks, because when good people who are support staff move up in the ranks, they become good people who hire support staff, and that is what we want to see happen. So support all of our panelists, support your peers, have a great weekend, take care of yourselves, and I will turn it back over to Final Draft to end the webinar from their side. And thank you to all of our panelists, of course, who are fabulous and fantastic.
Hi, everyone. Yes, thank you. I'm just here to say thank you. Make sure you follow us, and thank you to each and every one of you all. This is an excellent panel. I've learned so much. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. We will have a recording up on YouTube within the upcoming week. So if you registered, you'll get that email sent directly to you. If not, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Final Draft. So thank you all. And it was a pleasure to meet you all. And until next time, have a wonderful weekend. Be safe.